Welcome to the special edition of Hannity, Presidential Politics in the Press. Now, tonight for the hour, we're going to take a look how the liberal media is trying to influence the 2016 race for the White House. Now, earlier this week, after the press went after Donald Trump over his donations to veterans charities, well, the presumptive GOP nominee held a press conference to set the record straight, and he went right at him. Take a look.
I have never received such bad publicity for doing such a good job. Look, the media, you know my opinion of the media. It's very low. I think the media is, frankly, made up of people that, in many cases, not in all cases, are not good people. I have to tell you, the press is so dishonest and so unfair. And I've been dealing with the press a long time. I think the political press is among the most dishonest people that I've ever met. But what I don't want is when I raise millions of dollars, have people say, like this sleazy guy right over here from ABC. He's a sleaze in my book. You're a sleaze because you know the facts, and you know the facts well.
Now, after those exchanges, the press wasn't too happy about being called out by Mr. Trump. Watch this.
Is this what it's going to be like covering you if you're president?
Yeah, it is.
We're going to have this kind of confrontation in the press room?
Okay, yeah, it is going to be like this, David. If the press writes false stories, like they did with this, because, you know, half of you are amazed that I raised all of this money. If the press writes false stories, like they did where I wanted to keep a low profile, I didn't want the credit for raising all this money for the vets. I wasn't looking for the credit. And by the way, more money is coming in. I wasn't looking for the credit. But I had no choice but to do this because the press was saying I didn't raise any money for them.
And here with reaction is the editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio talk show host. Laura Ingraham is with us. You know, look at these words, that they're dishonest, they're unfair. His opinion of them is low. By the way, so is the American people's opinion. That they should be embarrassed, he said. They're not good people. I agree with all of that. And we saw this play out in the New York Times. We'll get to this later about Telemundo staging protests, choreographing what protesters should do. We saw Katie Couric insert 8 seconds of dead air. Nobody wants dead air on television or radio. But they got called out, and to me, it was a good thing. And I think the press died, journalism died in 2008. How profound was this attack by Trump?
Well, I think so many folks that were watching this play out between Trump and the press are saying to themselves, finally someone's calling out the dishonesty. And at the same time, I'll say, Sean, I don't think it's necessarily cool for Trump to take on every incoming missile or missilette from one of these media types. I think, yeah. I mean, it's like you're shooting down at these people. Reagan, I worked for President Reagan all those years ago, and he always kind of dealt with them with a wink and a smile, and then went right back to the American people. And I just think there's a little bit of a danger here of getting bogged down with the back and forth constantly with the press critics. He knows the press is against him. They're going to fight him every step of the way.
But, you know, look at the case of the veterans. All right, nearly $6 million. And at one point he said, well, are you going to ask Hillary how much the Clinton Foundation has given? They've given over the years $70,000. That's a legitimate comparison that they themselves ought to be thinking about if they were truly honest, fair, balanced. They're not, though.
Well, their whole point, but Sean, their whole point is that he only got the money together for the veterans groups when the Washington Post started digging around about it, and then he wrote his $1 million check kind of late in the game. I mean, they were like nitpicking him on the timing of, as if Trump was. Did we really think Trump was going to keep all the money for himself? I mean, I don't think anyone.
Yeah, he's going to steal it. He's a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
He's going to steal $6 million.
I don't think anyone. Yeah, I think this election is going to be won or lost on this question. Who is going to grow this economy? Who's going to make the lives of the average Americans better? Who's going to make the country stronger, the border more enforced, better deals, protect our sovereignty and our independence? I don't think the back and forth of the press, as entertaining, believe me, I find it very entertaining and well-deserved in most cases. I just don't want this to turn into the Trump media show for the rest of the election, because I don't think that ultimately will be good.
In the course of a week, though, the New York Times story got debunked. Katie Couric got exposed. Telemundo got exposed. So I think it's as relevant as it ever has been, and he took them on hard over the vets issues. Let me give you one example, and I actually think the election is going to be about, are you better off than you were 8 years ago?
Right.
And has liberalism failed again? And I think the answer is yes. And does Donald Trump offer a better vision for the country? But let's take the New York Times. Carrie Prejean and this woman, Brewer Lane, Brewer Lane, featured in the New York Times, a hit piece against Trump. They didn't expose Kathleen Willey, interview her, or Juanita Broderick, or Paula Jones, but they tried to smear and besmirch Trump, and it backfired. And it backfired because the women themselves spoke out, and here's part of what they said.
I basically, wouldn't give them a story, and now they came out with their own version of it and took, something out of my book and just totally twisted it and made it so negative. And I have nothing but positive things to say about Donald Trump.
They were trying to paint him in a bad light. There's nothing else that can convince me otherwise. Having asked them so many times and being promised repeatedly that it was not going to be exactly what it turned out to be, and made me angry. I'm not going to just say that's okay, because it's not supposed to happen, it shouldn't happen, and we shouldn't let it happen.
For the featured women to feel compelled.
Oh, of course. I mean, Sean, they're going to do this. This is what's going to happen between now and the first week in November to Donald Trump. They're going to say that he doesn't like women, that they're going to say that he's a perpetual, lawsuit, freak. Everything that they can possibly say, they're going to say. They're going to exaggerate. They're going to downright lie. And I think he's nailed them dead to rights on this. And I think most people watching the exchange between Trump and one of these nasty press people, he'll always come out on the top of that. My only point here is one of kind of tonality. His great strength is not backing down from a fight, but it's also, I think, laying out, when he gets into the specifics, laying out an agenda of growth and economic opportunity. I just don't want him to get too sidetracked.
Understood. I think you make a good point.
That's all.
I think the fact that it's such big news this week and it happened consecutively, I think is a pretty powerful indictment against them. It was funny. Dan Rather actually said the following. He said, I felt a shudder down my spine watching Donald Trump's attack against the press. This is not a moment to be trifled with. It wasn't his first tirade. It won't be his last. I'm kind of... And look at his career. It's pretty funny.
Sean, you had poor old Brian Williams. You had Jason Blair at the New York Times. You had Dan Rather's deal. You got Katie Couric. Now they're digging up things that Trump said in 1994 about women or wives who work. I mean, they will stop at nothing. But I'm saying, I think the American people are onto this game. I really do. And the old identity politics looks really stale after we've had a Democrat in the White House for 7.5 years who's still blaming George W. Bush. So I think Trump has, I think he has the world at his feet if he plays it right and mixes the substance with some of the fun banter, which I think at the same time is very entertaining. And the irony is that the mainstream media asked Barack Obama as a candidate one time, and I fed the question before a debate to George Stephanopoulos about Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn. He didn't even know who they were. One time. And to me, that tells the whole story. But, Laura, thanks for being with us.